to new beginnings. This is your Vivero. This is my Vivero. The place is full of magic. This is our Vivero. This is your Vivero. This is my Vivero. The place is full of magic. This is our Vivero.
Good morning and a warm welcome to our webinar, Parenting in COVID Times. I am Seema Singh Puri from Vivero International, and I will be your host this morning. Parenting, as we all know, brings with it some of the most joyful and fulfilling moments in one's life. And at the same time, it comes with its own set of unique challenges. From sleepless nights to anxious moments about your child's safety, to regular self-reflections, am I doing enough or what can I do better for my child? Parenting as we know it is not easy. We have been receiving an overwhelming number of questions from our parents, and we are today going to attempt and answer as many as we can. Over the next 45 minutes, our endeavor will be to accommodate as many questions as we've been receiving. You may also type in your questions in the chat option on your screens. And to answer your questions today, we have with us a panel of distinguished experts in the field of parenting. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome them and introduce them to you this morning. I'd like to begin with Ms. Bindu Bhatia. Bindu has been working in the space of coaching, counseling, and therapy for 20 years. She has coached, trained, and impacted 50,000 people across the globe, including corporate professionals, students, and parents. She's a much admired author. Her books, New Code for Winning Relationships and New Code for Mindful Parenting, are well acclaimed. She works extensively for working parents and conducts programs with top corporates on how to integrate work and home responsibilities. Welcome, Bindu.
Thank you so much, Seema, for such a stunning introduction. It's my privilege to be here. And thank you so much for inviting.
Wonderful. We are really delighted to have you with us, Bindu. I would also want to welcome Ms. Fatima Askar. Fatima is a mindfulness teacher, an author, and a parent coach. She holds a parent coach training mastery certification from ACPI USA and a professional certificate in coaching educational leaders from Monash University, Australia. With almost 18 years of experience in the education sector, she has conducted multiple training programs within and outside India, assisting schools, parents, and families in the areas of life skills training and child behavior management. She's a valuable member of Early Childhood Association of India. Welcome, Fatima.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. We also have with us our third panelist this morning, Ms. Nazra Ajani. Nazra is an experienced educator, parental coach, and an art therapist. She's worked closely with psychologists, parents, special educators, and academicians for over 20 years. Nazra has done commendable work on learning difficulty for educators, skill enhancement for teachers, and one-on-one coaching for parents. She's a passionate believer in the image of the child and is currently an eminent member of the leadership team at Vivero International. Good morning, Nazra, and welcome.
Good morning, Seema. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're delighted to have all three of you with us this morning. And I'm sure our parents are eagerly waiting to hear you speak. So I'm going to deep dive into the questions right away. Bindu, if I may begin with you. We know that children have been homebound for over a year now. And whether we like it or not, COVID-related conversations are a part of our dinner table talk now. And children are also overhearing media news, which unfortunately is not pleasant most of the times. How is this situation likely to impact the emotional well-being of 2 to 6 year olds? And what can parents really do to look after their needs, emotional needs, specifically in the present times?
Wow. Seema, thanks for that pertinent question. I think when it comes to children, especially at a toddler age, generally the mindset is, what about emotions for them, right? They're kids, they're bound to have emotions and stuff. But what we really don't know much about is that as per the development psychology, a lot of researches, we as parents need to understand this one fact, that between the age of 2 to 7 exactly, a child writes the entire life script in his mind. And that's a very, very big truth. By the time a child is 7 years, they've already defined their own personality, how they're going to live, what is their thought about different things, relationships. How do they do that? The children are observing everyone around. And now, especially in this pandemic time, the extra pressures on the parents, right? They're learning from every reaction that we're having at our home. They're learning from how we as parents are managing this change, how we, every fight that we have, every disappointment from relatives that we go through, every conversation we have about money, about finances, about the pressures, how we are coping up with it as parents. Children are observing and they're learning, and hence the importance of emotional well-being. Now, it is important for what is the role of parents now? You can't be conscious all the time of what you're doing, which ideally should be, but yeah, of course, we are all humans. For me, I think how as a parent I understood this was to understand that it's not important what your child is witnessing. What is important is what your child is translating out of what he or she is witnessing.
Beautifully put, Bindu. I think that's a pertinent point. How children are reading what they are observing. I think there's a transcription happening in the middle somewhere.
And hence, as a parent, what can I do today matters a lot. And I know that we are all overwhelmed. I know that as a parent today in COVID times, we are also playing the role of a friend, role of a teacher, role of so many roles with the same kid, right? So it becomes overwhelming. Let me share with you 3 things, very, very simple things that you can do as a parent, especially in these times, right? Every human being, little or big, needs it. So the 3 things, as per psychology and transactional analysis, every human being needs: 1, attention; 2nd, acknowledgement; and 3rd is your appreciation.
The 3 A's.
The 3 A's. Now, attention is not about, just looking at them, what they're playing. It's about, giving 30 minutes, only 30 minutes a day, just to talk about them, their thoughts, their feelings. I would just sit with my kid and just talk about the mermaids she watched. It's terribly boring, but I do that. That's what attention means. You do not judge them. You just talk to them. This is the time to check for their translations of things that are happening around. Second, acknowledgement. One of the tip I would want to give is that a lot of times children come to you crying, right? Children come to you with a lot of emotion. They throw tantrums. At that point in time, what are you doing? The natural thing is, I'm uncomfortable that you're crying. And that is why the first thing that will come is, don't cry. Don't cry. Are you a baby? You are strong. Why are you crying? Now, what are we doing here? We're not acknowledging that a child has an emotion. So a very simple thing as a parent that you can do is acknowledge, yes, I understand you're frustrated about something. That means a lot. And half of their emotion will just, play down if you just acknowledge that emotion. And the third one that I talked about was appreciation. And one rule that I follow is, when I appreciate, I don't add the word but. So you are an amazing kid. I am so proud of you that you wrote the entire essay all by yourself. But if you would have written this, it would have been good. Now this but cuts everything. So this is one, these are small little tips, but they help. So 3 A's, and that's how I'll wind up my answer, Seema.
Wonderful. I think, Bindu, those are very pertinent points, and I'm making my notes as well. And how it is, it inherently as parents, we try and bring in the scope for improvement along with appreciation, like you beautifully put. This is really good, but you could have also done that. I think these are things we need to be mindful of. Thank you for that, Bindu. I think keeping children's emotions secure is really one of the most important areas currently that all of us are grappling with, and we must make a note of that. Taking this a little forward, Fatima, I'd like to bring you in at this point for a time. One is regular emotional well-being. Another reality of the present times is that, people have experienced COVID loss as well. How do parents talk to children about grief or anxiety, specifically when parents are experiencing it themselves in some form or the other? How can parents take it forward with young children?
So thank you so much for this question. I think it's a very important one to sort of get on a discussion right now. So one thing that is very important for us to understand, that we somewhere believe that children need to be shielded from the pain of loss. We feel like we need to protect them all the time. Like we don't want them to feel anxious, anxiety related to fear or worry or uncertainty or loss of something, which is grief, right? And one thing that we need to understand is that kids are better at regulating these emotions. They are better because for them, they are born with this ability to just be present with that emotion. They have that. But yes, they may come to you for a couple of, sort of validation, confusion. So what I'm trying to say is that, somewhere holding that space for children to somewhere experience that grief is very important for a parent. So what does holding space actually means? It just means just physically, mentally, and emotionally being present for someone. Like just allow them to feel that grief. And one mistake that we do is we, like, Bindu said, we just come and say, don't cry.
Yeah.
Or everything is going to be okay. Like it's going to be okay. But the reality is we don't even know it's going to be okay. So it's an inaccurate information that we actually end up giving them because we really don't know if it's going to be okay or not, right? So giving them these sort of false stories really kind of disempowers them, because at the end of the day, what really disturbs kids is not honest information. It is that, that sense of vagueness that we create, that sense of inaccurate information that we give them, right? And we give them feeling confused or left, keep them feeling, wondering about what's really going to happen. So you give them saying, like, for example, granny is not well. And then you tell them, granny is going to come back after three days. And but the child actually has heard you speak about granny being hospitalized.
And
So
he senses your emotions.
Why?
Yes, so well put. He's sensing it from your voice as well. What you're saying and what he's hearing are not matching somewhere probably as well, like what you're saying.
Yeah. So so there are only two things that we have to keep in mind, or rather, should I say three things. Number one is, as a parent, just holding that space for a child to grieve in the way they want. Like, for example, there was a parent who came and he lost an aunt. So this child was about 4 years old. And the parent actually broke the news that the aunt is no more because he was very close. And the moment he broke, he was very quiet. And then he said, Mama, can I have a snack? So then the parent is like, really, is he, like, how is he reacting? Like, what's happening? So they came up to me and they asked me, what is really happening? Because he just, came up with this idea of having a snack, and then he just wants to play and he's not ready to talk. So, what we really fail to understand, that kids are actually tuned to regulate their emotions and their grief in the way they want. So for this time, in this situation, the child asking for a snack was actually telling the parents, saying, listen, it's a little overwhelming for me. I don't want to do it right away. Right? So give that space. And then when the child is probably maybe towards the evening or maybe next day, just broach that topic again, saying, hey, this is something that happened. So, and it just kind of observing the child is ready to talk. If the child is not ready to talk, saying it's okay not to talk, it's all right. Right? Or the child may just express his emotion by crying very, very loudly, or he may cry after 5 days. So giving that creative space, giving that space where the child you can feel they're feeling the way they are, because grief takes time to even process. Even adults are figuring out how to work with this very intense emotion. And we need time. We need space. We need people to tell us that we are there for them, not tell us that everything's going to be okay. Because at this moment, I've lost a relative. It is not okay. And I don't even know if it's going to be okay. How am I going to feel like that? So I think there are two basic rules. Number one is give honest information and age appropriate information. I think these are two things which are very, very important, right? So if you don't want to give it right now, also give it in terms of, in terms of smaller capsules of information that you want, but give honest information. When the parent says, I don't know, like, Ma, what's going to happen? Am I going to die? Like, I don't know if my grandmother is going to die. Saying, you know what? We don't know, but let's hope, let's have faith that everything is going to be okay just the way it is right now. So let's have faith. We don't know, right? And it's okay to say that. And kids don't get confused. For them, they sense that realistically, and then they go back. So I think these are things that needs to do. It's just to give them time, give them age appropriate information, give them the accurate and honest information, and, kind of broach it up and give them that really whole space for them to feel it without fixing it, without telling them that it's going to be okay, you can't cry, things like that. Really, it doesn't work. It just confuses them a lot more.
Well said, Fatima. I think as parents, we are constantly trying to fix things for our children. And sometimes in that we take away their, the natural progression of certain emotions and development, which comes fairly naturally. I think that really helps us understand the emotional aspect of what children are really facing and experiencing right now. Let me now move to the social bit. I think that is another area which, especially for young children, like Bindu put beautifully earlier as well, life scripts are being written when they are pretty young. And when the children are about 2 years, 3 years, that's the time they start developing their social connections with children of the same age group. And of course, the teacher, other adults and parents of their friends, etc. We know social development has a lot of developmental benefits on children as well. Now, parents are currently concerned, and Nazira, I'll want to bring you in this point of time. Parents are concerned because social connections are limited at the moment. As much as they would like their children to interact with more children of the same age group, they're unable to do that. So what can parents really do to develop those social skills which are so very critical for young children?
Thank you, Seema, for the question. I've been listening to the beautiful flow of thoughts right from the 3 A's that Bindu spoke about, the innate quality in children, which says that they can regulate their emotions, which is very true. Taking that from there, taking that thought from Fatima, I think we need to understand that children are innately very resilient and adaptable, much more than what we would as adults adapt to change. And this question about social interaction, yes, it has been on the minds of a lot of parents, especially the children in these early years. These are the years when children start learning to understand their own emotions. They, they learn to understand who they are. They are taking interpretations from the interactions that they have with anybody, peers or adults at that point in time. And they as Bindu rightly said, that's what these experiences, interactions with adults or peers or people around them is when they start writing certain scripts in their mind, right? So given the current situation where that kind of freedom is not available for our children today, to go down in the park or have too many friends over with the COVID situation we are looking at right now, I think as a parent or for the parents, Seema, I would like to say, let's look at it in a simple twofold approach, where I would say a parent and child social interaction segment, and we can look at a child with his or her peers. So how can parents have the social interaction with their own child at home? Very simple things. These are things that we have already been doing with our children. I think most of the parents have been following this as their ritual. For example, read a book. Just make it a ritual to just read a book to your child. When you're reading a book, what exactly happens is you are bringing in a certain amount of interaction. They are listening to you and they're also imagining. That does help them to create certain amount of social settings in their mind. Second thing that parents can facilitate or bring in experiences is, we've seen all our young ones play with their toys, right? So encourage role play with their toys. I've seen my daughters have those small doll parties, and we have had our, the boys in the family play with the superheroes and enact. What
Oh,
is
yes. Integral part of growing up. I think role plays,
Yes.
all of us are not, we've seen it all around.
Yes, I think playing a teacher's role in the class, putting your mom or just having nobody in front of you is something that all the girls have already done, So what is happening here is allow them to do it, create that kind of environment where they can have these kind of role plays, steal a little bit of time from your busy schedule. I know all of us are working from home, but I think few minutes and just go and be a participant when your child is doing this in the role play, which is also helping them have those kind of imaginary conversations, right? A lot of imaginary conversations, which then are giving them a certain amount of practice to, work and behave in social settings. And the third, and I think the most simple thing is that during the COVID times, I think we all have done it all, at home, all the simple chores that we were not doing earlier. I think we have better skills today to manage those. So I think getting our children to help us around the house with daily chores is something as simple, but a very wonderful feeling, because during those kind of interactions, I think the two most important pillars, Seema, which is empathy and perspective taking, is what is getting sharpened and what children are learning from this. These were what parents could do, right, with the child. Now, looking at how we can have something that is where the children can interact with their peers, right? Given the kind of limited, freedom that we have right now, bringing certain amount of normalcy in their lives is important. And as the driver or a catalyst, I think as a parent, we can do a few simple things. We can have a routine. Children in these early years, I think all of us here will agree, love routine. They flourish better in routine. They're not happy with too many surprises sprung over them in the morning when they wake up. So I think routine, giving them stability, anchoring them so that they know what to expect when I get up in the morning is very important. And a parent can create that. And we can have two things where children can interact with their peers. One is, I think most of the parents here are already doing, is their children are attending some kind of school program, school program, which is participation with their peers on a daily basis. That would be something that is part of their regular routine. So interacting with peers of their age, interacting with the educator, with the teachers, that is a great way to, encourage social interaction. And B, we can have virtual play dates. The most simple thing that I can see right now is a virtual play date with your child. You can decide according to your parenting styles, whether you would like to have it once a week or thrice a week. We leave it to the parents. But I think these things really, really help them interact with their peers. Yeah. Seema, I can actually really go on and on trying to give so many solutions and tips, but I think this is the right moment where I would like to share an audio visual with all our parents here today. I think that is going to speak 1,000 words. So can I request the tech team, please play the video for us? Thank you.
It's been eaten by a tuna fish, flashing through the water. Tuna fish, tuna fish.
But teacher, do you know what? I see the waterfall.
Oh,
Teacher,
yes, Gara.
yesterday evening I went to Fateh Sagar Lake.
Winter Patisagil nahi go to you did boating.
I didn't go because of the COVID conditions.
Okay, now it is Nivan Maheshwari, your turn. Come on, Nivan, start giving clue about your living things. Living thing. 2 clues, okay? Only 2 clues.
He has long trunk and he has big ears.
Okay, long trunk and big ears. Who is it? Raise your hand if you want to answer. Yes, Navar.
Elephant.
Is it correct, Nivan?
Yes.
Oh, show us your elephant. Wow, lovely. Okay, thank you, Snavar, and thank you, Nivan. Nivan, now clue for the non-living.
This is my dad. He's wearing a Batman t-shirt. I'm wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt because I have lots of Spider-Man t-shirts. And this is my mom wearing a Captain America t-shirt. And I'm wearing jeans here.
Oh, that's very nice, Azad. Can you show your drawing again to your friends? That's beautiful.
1 second, there's too much of
This is
glare.
my tall mom. This is my dad. This is my sister. This is my. I am her brother.
This is me. Yeah.
This is me, and this is. You just come to my birthday, Mihika. Yeah. My birthday is this. So press where you find reactions. Then where you see 3 dots, press on that. Then you'll find it. Look at this. What are you doing?
Nazra, thank you for that beautiful video. I think what really stood out was children are just hardwired for social interactions. And I think the joy of interacting with their peers is something else. You could see it in their eyes, literally. And I think even teacher-student interaction has its own charm. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Nazra.
Absolutely. I think, Seema, this video that we watched just now, I think we as adults have always believed that social interactions, emotional development can happen only in a physical setting. And we did believe this till before the pandemic struck us. But I think with this, the children have really shown us throughout the last year that social interaction doesn't need to be bound by being under one roof physically. I think it has flourished as well as on the virtual platform. And I think I take that away from them right now.
Absolutely. Speaks volumes about their, resilience and adaptability of young children. And thanks, Nazra, for that. I'll move on to the next question that we've had from quite a few parents. And Bindu, if you can take this for us. Parents have been experiencing a behavioral change in children, Bindu, of late. So a lot of them have written to us and have been telling us as well. There are more tantrums from children now. They probably become more stubborn. A lot of them tell us just doesn't listen to us anymore, So why is this really happening? And how best can parents manage these behavioral changes in children at the present times?
Great. Okay. So there's something very funny that I remember from a book. It started saying, I was a wonderful parent even before I had a children.
Well said.
I was an expert on why everyone else was having a problem.
Yes.
And then the reality struck when I had my own. Yes, there are a lot of people judging all of us as parents. You should do this, you should do that. But we all can empathize with each other. That
it all fails. The theory fails when you really ask.
I'm just saying that asterisk. It might or might not apply, but some things that will always work, and being consistent with that might help you. Now, some things that I have learned in my journey by studying and practical on my child. Now, always remember that there is a very direct connection between how the kids feel and how they behave. And
No filters for them. So
no filters. At the same time, even for us, right?
Yes.
How we feel, our behaviors do show that. And that is the same with children, right? Now, when the kids feel right, they'll behave right. So which means that's a big clue for you as a parent that there is something that is brewing up in the child. They are feeling something. There is something unmet or unresolved that is making them do, have these tantrums and anger pangs. The first thing for us to understand is that. Now, what is my role as a parent? What do I do when they are throwing tantrums? I think that empathy, that this tantrum is just, what I'm seeing, but there is too much behind that is going on. So that empathy really helps. And how do you show that empathy to the kid is the least you can do is not show your own tantrums, because if you show your own tantrums, then it's very clear that you're not comfortable with the child's feelings, right?
Yes.
So the best and simplest way when they are into that mode is, again, and I'm reiterating my point, is by accepting how they're feeling.
Yes.
Let them vent out first. Without taking it in the, how can they talk to me like that? This is happening, without letting your fears unfold. Just hear them out. Let them just vent out. That is very important process for a child to go through. And after that,
And Bindi, if I may say this, I think inherently the minute children start behaving in a particular way, inherently we immediately want to stop them from. We are worried about what will everybody around them think, or this is really getting out of hand. So I think step one.
It is our fears, and especially in
Yes.
front of anybody else, if they do this, then we feel even more embarrassed.
Yes.
You know what? End of the day, our child is the most important thing or being in our life. So let's face it, let's give them that attention that they need, irrespective of whoever, whatever. So stop, at some time deal with your own fears. How are you being judged?
Yes.
Get that into the back burner. I know that's easier said than done, but if you can do that, just realizing that the child is very important. Right now, if he's throwing tantrum, there is something that is going on. Now that's when they are throwing tantrums. Now, what can you do proactively, or what can you start doing today when things are fine to ensure that the tantrums are less?
Yes.
These are some of the tips that you can experiment with. One, a lot of homes I have seen, especially in our culture, we are not comfortable talking about emotions. So I think as a family, opening up to each other, giving each other feedback, what I like, what I wish could change, talking about emotions is very important for a child to know that, yeah, I can tell my mom that I'm feeling this way. Because they'll end up into tantrum because they feel that it's not okay for me to tell mom I'm feeling this way, so I'll show it.
Yes, haven't got a vent. They haven't been able to sort of vent it out or show it through words yet. So then it comes through actions probably.
And now for them to, showing it is easy, and tell and show. I'll tell you one very interesting point, and that might help parents themselves as well. It's a very famous saying that when you have a negative feeling, when you're angry, for example, yeah, it's important to tell. You tell, you don't show. And the difference is, what are you doing? That's like I'm showing that I'm angry.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis saying that, you know what, I'm feeling a bit angry about this. Now there's a difference between these two reactions, right? So learn the emotional vocabulary first, and mindful parenting, that's one of the ways you can be a mindful parent, by learning a lot of words of emotions. How do you yourself describe what you're going through? And telling that rather than showing that, and your child will learn that with you. They have mirror neurons. Trust me, they'll copy what you do. So that's another one. Third mistake, and that is something that I've also seen our parents doing unconsciously. What we do is we went out in front of our relatives or our friends. Oh, he's a very naughty person. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He throws tantrum. She just never listens. Now this is specifically called labeling.
Yes.
Yeah. My dad used to say, oh, she's very sensitive. She's a crybaby. And then I just embodied it.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a crybaby, so it's okay for me to cry. And I would just cry because I'm a crybaby. And I just embodied it. Now I'm an emotional.
Living the label, Bindi. Start living the label that's been given to you.
Absolutely. And especially coming from parents.
Yes.
I just sees them sees it, should, if not negative, if not positive, then don't give them a negative label. So I think that itself, do not start reinforcing negative labels. Even if you're describing your child in front of your relatives, describe what you want him or her to be. So that's one. Another one. And then sometimes, and last but not the least, once their feelings settle down, once they throw tantrums. But a very interesting fact is, now you tell me, Seema, if there is something that you really achieved in your life, some big award or something, you're very proud of, who's the first person or the set of people you would want to go and show?
Family.
Family, yeah? Parents. We want our parents to say, I'm proud of you, even at this age.
Yes.
And that's when we feel that fulfillment. A child is living for pleasing you. You are the ecosystem, ecology for the child. So what is very important is that whenever there is, tantrum or something, some kind of behavior that you don't approve of, when they settle down, you just tell the child how you feel about it. Don't judge them. Don't pass on or be defensive, but just say that, what, when you do this, I really feel hurt. And I'm just telling you that. And trust me, children don't want that consciously to happen. This works with adults as well, but start with the children first.
Yeah.
So, those are some tips of how to manage those tantrums, proactively taking care of that. So yeah.
Wonderful, Bindu. I think those are, again, I think little changes we need to bring in our lives and make them a part of our lives. And instead of doing these piecemeal, they have to be embodied into ourselves as well, I think. And when you really said that, we are the universe and the ecosystem revolves around us, so I actually got goosebumps. How our children works, I mean, all the kind of pressures they deal with, unknowingly, we are sometimes sort of burdening them as well. Many times we end up doing that unknowingly as well, in spite of wanting the best for them. Thank you for that, Bindu. Okay, and we have been receiving questions specifically around keeping children engaged. I think, Fatima, if I may come to you with this question. A lot of times parents hear this at home from the children, I am getting bored. So what can parents do? And a lot of them have reached out to us. How can we keep our children engaged at home? So Fatima, what tips would you give to our parents?
It is a very common question that parents will ask, especially if they have the young kids, even if they have teenagers for that matter. But let me just, before I answer that question, can I just clarify a few things? Because I think Bindu also spoke a lot about emotions, and I spoke about holding space. So let me just tell why this is so important for our viewers.
Yes.
I think it's important to understand that when a child is born, he is born with a mind which is very strong in feelings. So we're all born with feeling side of our mind. The thinking of side of the mind is not really activated. It gets activated, only after, somewhere around 5 to 6 years. The time when they start asking questions, why do I have to sleep on my right? Why is it that the sun rises? Why do I have to follow your rules? That's the time they ask. So when the disconnect comes, when a parent is looking at correcting, like how Bindu said, correcting behaviors from an intellectual process, and the child does not even understand that because the child is feeling something. And what are these emotions? Emotions, yes, it's easier to add a label to it. I'm using the word label or a name, like I'm angry, I'm sad, and for, worry. But for a child, they don't have that vocabulary. They don't even have that intelligence to even process it and name it. So for them, they show a worry with their body. They'll keep moving a lot, right? Or when they are disappointed, they'll cry. That means tears are going to come out. So what does that mean? It means that the nervous system wants to vent out that energy. So that's why they move. That's why they jump. That's why they run. That's why they want to bang things. That's why they want to experiment. So there's a lot of, that's why the whole idea of staying, communicating, and using emotion-based, feeling-based words are very important. That's why I think Bindu was also saying that it's very important for you to understand that. And you know what? Sometimes we may not even know how to connect. We may not even know how to use these emotion words. And that's absolutely fine as a parent. I think one one technique, one practice which is underutilized because it just feels very ordinary is silence. We don't know how to be silent when the child is playing tantrums, or going through a tantrums, or going through a sort of worry, or is trying to figure out what that emotion is, or screaming, shouting, anxious, whatever it may be. We don't know how to be silent with them. We just, pack that experience with words.
Yeah, we just want to react, and most often react and not respond. I think instinctively we end up doing that probably.
Yeah, or it could be even for the sake of, intentionally helping that child, saying, oh, you know what? I know this is sadness. What is this called? This is sadness. Hello. The parent is trying to teach, but there is a time for that. Like sometimes silence really tells you. It especially doesn't work with the 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. He doesn't know what sadness actually. He will learn, he will listen, but he needs to match that experience with the word. That will come with age. We have to be very patient about it. So that's something which I just wanted to add with to the beautiful conversation that Bindu had. Now coming back, because I think this is also connected to what I want to say,
Yes.
is that when children are coming to you saying, I'm bored. So the first question is, what's wrong in boredom? Why is it that the child should not feel bored? Why are you so afraid of your child being bored? Why is it that we are so afraid of feeling? Boredom is also like any other emotion that the child needs to learn how to regulate. Because the way you stay with a happiness is very different from the way you stay with anxiety. So you have to figure out, how do I work with anxiety? Like the way I work when I'm, let's say, a 20-year-old will be very different from a 30-year-old. So it's all about figuring out, how do I work with my emotions at that time, being present to it, right? So boredom is also an emotion. So why do we not allow children to just feel bored? Because I think the biggest mistake we're doing right now is really fixing schedules to them. Now, routine is, like Nazura says, routine is very important. Children love structures, right? But there is a time when you just need to let them go. Like, let them just be. Like, I can talk to you from my own experience. When my child was about, let's say, 7 years old, we went to a friend's place, and then the friend was being very nice and kind. She said, you know what, your daughter is getting bored. Can I switch on the television? Can I put something for her? And I said, no. You don't have to do anything. Let her get bored. So then she said, but no, she's getting bored. She's not doing anything. Let her get bored. Let her get bored. So she was not talking. She was sitting by herself, not wanting to do something. Every time she came to me, I said, well, do you want any suggestions on what you can do? Do you want a book? She said, no. I said, all right. So I didn't really do anything about it, right? I just allowed it. And after 10 minutes, she got up and she started looking at that books. There were a couple of books that were there, and she started figuring out. She came to me and said, Mama, can I help you keep, they were keeping those lunches and things like that. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, having a routine is fantastic. It's fabulous. Kids need structure. But I think sometimes our relationship of boredom is really screwed up. I'm using the word, it's distorted, because we don't want our children to feel bored. So let them just feel bored sometimes. But the thing is, when they're bored, what we're trying to fix, what they do is they go to the kitchen and they pull out all the things. They try to make mess of things. So that's why we don't want them to feel bored, and we want to fix them. Ki Allah, you know what? They'll try to make mess of everything. I don't want to put my effort over there. So usko kuch game khila do, give them some game so that they're occupied. They don't make a mess out of the place. If that is what you're concerned about, give them a corner where they can make a mess. Let them pull out dal, chawal, atta, clay, whatever they want to do. Give them a place where they can just feel free, where they can just feel safe, where they can make a mess, and they also learn how to, clean that place up. I mean, that is the best way to actually teach them how to be responsible for their doing.
Yeah.
So just being, getting them to figure out what they need to do when they're bored. Because if you don't do this right now, when they're teenagers, you know what? They will go and look at and choose things that is going to be superficial, unhealthy. They'll, look at choosing some things that gives them happiness, which is just at a superficial level. Let them go deep and let them figure out what they need to do and how to handle that emotion. So give them a space. Give them a lively space where they can just be free. Call it freedom corner. Let them make a mess. Keep some mud. Keep some, these little bottles that you have, something which is safe for the children, and just let them figure out how to deal with boredom.
Wonderful. I think that's something which we can do. It's not that difficult. It's just conditioning our minds and knowing that letting children be, let them explore, and they will figure out their way of keeping themselves happy and engaged. Thanks, Fatima, for that.
Can I add one?
Yes, Bindu. Yes, Bindu.
How beautifully, Fatima, you explained the whole concept of boredom, and it's a very different paradigm to think about from parenting standpoint. And I think COVID has some blessing in disguise. Unknowingly, our children are becoming resilient, right? Living with boredom, living all by yourself, spending time alone. I think these, if I can learn how to spend my time alone and still be happy, I think that's the biggest learning a child can have. That's resilience.
Yeah.
I'm not dependent on the world
Yes.
to be happy, or some external, like Fatima said, some external game or some materialistic things to be happy. I'm okay with silence. Our relationship with silence becomes better. So what better times than COVID to really experience?
Yes, and I think COVID has really done that. COVID has changed a lot of things within us and around us. And really, this is one of the things. It takes time to come to terms with it because we are so used to over scheduling our children's routines. But however, I think this will go a long way in keeping them happy in the long run. Nazra, let me bring you in at this point of time. And one area which is, again, if I may call it a pain point or a concern for a lot of parents, is increased screen time. Children are spending a lot more time on different devices at the moment. What is your advice to our parents about this?
A good question, I think, Seema. And listening to Fatima and Bindu, I think just to summarize and say, I think children have learned to manage their emotion with discomfort tolerance. Whenever there is a discomfort, I think we have learned to manage our emotions in that. And coming back to what I'm talking about, screen time, I think screens are here to stay. They are an integral part of our lives, and now more so with our children. So what I would like to tell parents is, please don't look at or with an objective to say, I'm going to just do away with screen time. That is not realistic. Absolutely not realistic. So as a parent, what is it that we can do? We know that we are working from home, parents are busy. As part of conditioning, like Fatima and Bindu said, there are times when it was convenient or is convenient to us. We have given our child an iPad, a phone, so that they would be kept busy. So we have even as a parent, we are partially a little responsible for having exposed them to that kind of screen time. But it was the need of the hour. I would say there is nothing right or wrong in this kind of parenting. Parenting just comes with those experiences where we learn from the actions that we actually put out, and then we get those responses. So having said that, I think as a parent, coming to the point of screen time, it is very important for us to understand that there are two types of screen time. Okay, I would say one is interactive and the other one is passive. With the interactive screen time, very simply put, this would be mindful engagement with the content on screen. Now, when there's a mindful engagement, the outcome is it is encouraging participation, social interaction. There is a lot of thinking skills that are being put forth by the children when they are mindfully engaged with the content on the screen. B, as I said, passive. Passive would be, I can say, a mindless engagement with the screen content. Just mindlessly watching your series, not the best way of digital engagement. And I think here parents would be looking more to manage the passive one. The interactive is through the regular school programs, and parents are really happy about that, right? So we're very happy when children are bringing back learning and sharing those with us. And that is a good part, because that is really how there is a lot of, addition to the intellectual and the other skill buckets of our children. Okay, coming to the passive one, that is the one where parents need the management. Now, making it sound a little more simpler and making it easy for the parents, how about calling the interactive screen time let me compare it to home cooked food. Okay. And let's call the passive screen time junk food. So,
That's an interesting analogy there, Nazra.
so with the home cooked food, I think every parent here will agree that if it was in my hand, I would make sure that my child would have absolutely no junk food, only home cooked food every day, right? From breakfast, lunch to dinner. And we all know the benefits, but junk food has its own benefits too. It tastes very good on the tongue. Believe me, ask our children and they will tell you that. So having said that, can we completely do away with home food and say, let's replace it with junk food? Not a single parent here would agree with us, not even me as a parent. We cannot do away with that completely. But at the same time, can we do away with junk food completely? No. So here is where we need to seek the balance. Seek the balance between the passive and the interactive, or basically passive digital screen time that we're looking at. So with the changing digital landscape since the time the pandemic has hit us, and screens being a regular integral part of our lives, I think there is one simple thing that parents can do. I think every parent can try this. And as Fatima said, let's not do it when the child is actually watching the screen time and you are really irritated about it or you're upset about it. That's not the time to do it. Just hold on. Hold on to your thoughts, regulate your thoughts as a parent. Pause yourself for a few days, that maybe look at a neutral timing to do what I'm going to tell you to do right now. It's very simple. Make your own family digital media plan. We could call it digital rules, but I wouldn't want to use the word rules because then you would not get too much of cooperation from your children. And how do you do this, Seema? Creating a simple digital agreement. Like we have a lot of essential agreements in school as well. That is done with collaboration with the children.
Right.
It's not the adult driving it and saying, 1, 2, 3, this is how you do it. No, we engage the children. So in the same manner, a parent to engage your child when you're creating this digital agreement. Create it together. Make your child a stakeholder in the decision making. Okay, so in this, what is that you can include? You can set the daily timings for the digital viewing, the duration, and also weekly times or weekly treats when they can move from maybe the regular weekly digital timing to saying, okay, you get a half an hour extra over the weekend. So that suits your family values and your parental style, which is extremely important.
I get it. So I think if I may just wrap this up for you.
Sure.
So what we are telling them is, bring in balance, involve our children in making sort of essential agreements around screen time.
Yes.
And once we have their agreement and consensus, it will be far more smoother and we can arrive at our own family's balance.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
I think that is a pertinent point with a lot of parents, and it really helps give them some perspective. But at this point of time, I'm really tempted to share this with you also. I do want to take a moment and talk about our version of interactive screen time as well, and which is our school program, iLearn at Vivero. So through our iLearn at Vivero program, we've taken learning right to children's homes, and the children are enjoying themselves through a variety of learning experiences. So I do want to take a moment and share this audio visual with our parents right now. The tech team, may I request you to please play this audio visual right now?
Deepika teacher, see Deepika.
Yes, Navar, what do you want to say?
You will see only 1 with back counting, not 0.
Not 0? Okay, we'll count till 1. No problem. Let's count backward counting from 10 to 1. Let's do it. Okay, are you ready, Navar?
Yes, I ready.
10,
10,
9,
9,
8,
8,
7,
7,
6,
6,
5,
5,
4,
4,
3,
3, 2, 1. it
correct? Was it correct, Snavar, now?
Yes, it's correct.
It's correct. Okay.
One Sunday morning, the hot and warm sun came up and the caterpillar popped. My name is Sandy. Today I'm going to talk about the thirsty crow story. It was a hot day and one crow was very thirsty. I keep making here one corn, then I will make it 2 corns. We like to snooze horizontal. We like to snooze upside down. We like to snooze wherever we choose, snoozing around the town. The butterfly asked her, "Why are you so sad?" The flower answered, "My friend is missing." The giant ball inside of okay now. Teacher's going to tell Isha. Yes, Isha. Go from down. Very nice. I like when
Straw and pop.
number 1,
Nice.
3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7.
Wow, Ahana, very well done.
Nazra, it's as though the screen doesn't exist for the children. I think you're talking of the interactive screen time, and for them, the boundaries have blurred completely.
Absolutely.
Virtual and physical is all pretty much one thing for them. Wonderful. Okay, I think I'm going to. There's one question which has come up, and which I also, as a parent, I'm always seeking answers to. And I think, Bindu, if you can help us understand this better. Especially in the pandemic and all of us working from home, we are hard pressed for time. And as much as we would like to spend more time with our children, I think all of us have been in that boat wherein we have felt guilty about not giving enough time to our children at some time or the other. What advice would you give to parents around this guilt that most of us experience about not being able to do as much for our children in terms of time as we would like to?
And as simple that question is, I think guilt is a very, very deep emotion. It is. So if I were to just answer it simply, 2 things that worked for me. Yeah. One, the awareness that the children sense our emotions. If I'm feeling guilty, they will sense it. And toddler age, as per psychology as well, they are mini cute manipulators.
Wonderful description.
So if you are feeling guilt, be ready for a ride, because then they'll ensure everything to be done to put you more into the guilt. But what is it? What is it actually? It's the story that you're telling yourself. It's the role that you've attached with a parent, that I have to be with my kid always, and I'm not being there, and that is why I'm feeling the way I am. But you know what? One day I went to my child, and I was guilt-ridden, I must admit. And I just, because we are open in communication, I asked her, "Beta, Mama's too busy these days, and I keep working. How do you feel about it?" And you know what she says? "Mama, I'm so proud of you." And that completely changed the perspective, right? Yeah, my child should see me as an independent woman. She should learn how to manage. At the same time, talking to your kid, understanding their feeling about it. I understand if they say, "No, I really miss you," or I want to spend more time, then you're talking to them about how do we do it. Co-creating that solution. Trust me, your children are more mature than you think they are. They'll come up with answers that you would have never even thought about, right? So talking to them, understanding what are their expectations, and not really thinking and distorting the entire information and story in your mind. That will help you get rid of your guilt. The second thing, which is very important, is you're working, right? What are you working on? Why are you working? How are you impacting people? How are you helping the organization grow? How are you helping the society? Get them a feeling of pride. That
Yeah.
my mom, my dad is working for this. that helps you also to deal with your guilt. So these are some two very practical tips that I can give. Of course, guilt is much deep rooted, and we need to look at some other psychological aspects. But to handle it with your children, two things: talk with them about your work, and talk with them about a mutual agreed solution of how we can go about it. So yeah, sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bindu. I think that's some takeaway for all of us working parents in various degrees. I think we go through this emotion. Thank you for that. And as much as I'm enjoying this conversation with all three of you, unfortunately, I think this is all that we have time for. So I have to, at this point of time, thank all three of you. Thank you, Nazra. Thank you, Fatima. And thank you, Bindu, for making the time to be with us this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure having the three of you with us.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Wonderful. And thank you, parents, for being with us today as well. Before we sign off, there is a short message from our children as they urge you to follow social distancing norms and stay safe. Do have a look and have a wonderful weekend ahead.